I did a few more bits and pieces on the engine before I wanted to put it in, just because it's easier working on it outside of the car. I'm changing the breather setup from the factory way. I'm just going to be connecting all three of them into 2T pieces, and then I'm going to mount a catch can on the side of the gearbox, and I'm going to run them into the catch can, and then from the catch can I'm going to run it into the exhaust, and the exhaust will draw a vacuum on the system. And I've also got a little T there coming off for the charcoal filter. I'll put a one-way valve on that and connect that up and take the solenoid out, so I don't have to waste the output on my ECU controlling that solenoid. So that's the changes to the breather system. Made a few changes to the wiring. I had a load of analog sensors, oil pressure, oil temp, charge cooler inlet and outlet temperatures on a canvas module, and now I've got extra inputs on my ECU, so I've wired those up directly. I did have just one coolant pipe coming from the back for the heaters. You've got this water manifold, and there's a pipe there which comes out here, and then there's a pipe there which is this one. That was the only one I was running, but the way I had it, I'm pretty sure I'd short-circuited the cooling system, because when I put an electric pump on it, I was finding that the car was taking ages to get warm and the heaters were warm quick. So I'm going to try and run it how it would have been on the Audi engine and block off the other pipe on the Boxster. One thing I haven't run yet is this bracket here. Got a gear cable this side and this side, and I need to somehow get them up under all of this, and I'm going to run them in the V. They're not very flexible and I've barely got any space, so that's going to be interesting. I've done it before and it was a nightmare, and I seem to have more stuff going on now at the back of this engine, so we'll see how that pans out for me. I've deleted the after run coolant pump, so I just got this pipe that joins them up. I've relocated my boost solenoid here into where the after run coolant pump was, just to tidy everything up and hide stuff away. So ready to get it in the car. I've got a real bad feeling these two aren't going to fit. Well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I've got the car up really high. I had the trolleys, like the little dollies that were under the rear wheels before. I've now moved those under to the front. They give me a bit more height. And I've got this frame, which is basically axle stands on wheels. And that's a lot more height. So that's going to give you a lot more height to clear the engine, hopefully, so I shouldn't have too many issues. It was really sketchy get it onto this frame. I used these bottle jacks either side to lift it up, but it's not particularly clever having the whole of the car as such a tiny little contact patch, and then I had to jack up the front to get the skates under, so a bit hairy, but you know, if it fell it'd only land on its wheels, so no biggie really. So that's under there now. It's just far enough forward that it's going to clear the front engine mount, so I should be able to get it all lined up quite easily. And the car will roll really easy now it's on the skates at the front. Don't have to worry about steering or anything, I can just push it. So the plan now is to move the engine into the pit and roll the car forward. So hopefully it all goes well. I'm not in the mood for disasters. One thing that's handy with having the car higher is it would clear the front engine mount without the car tipping over the edge of the garage and actually taking the weight on the winch. So that's good, because I can move the car without it taking the full weight. Right, just cleared the cable. You see that gearbox is longer than the 5-speed. I hope my exhaust is still going to fit. It's going to need modifying, I know that. So I'll lower it down and pull the car back over now. So that's the engine now supported. It's got a bottle jack under the gearbox, and then the transmission jack under the engine, and that's sitting in place. It's a lot higher than it was the last time because of the turbos, they're wider. I think it's going to clear anyway, and if it doesn't clear I can easily just go up a notch on these axle stands with wheels on them. So it's time to pull the car back over it and hope for the best. So the car's right back in the garage. Got the chain connected to it. I've pulled it up roughly in place, so I'm going to be able to bolt the front mount up. So the engine's in and it's set at roughly the height it was set at before. This turbo is good, decent clearance all round, so that's alright. Now this was the one that I knew would be the trouble, and it's tight up in this top corner. It's taken me a while, but I think I've worked out a plan of action. So I lowered the engine and gearbox, and I've done a bit of clearance in around the turbo. That EGT sensor is a bit of a pain, to be honest, because the angle it's at, but it's going to work. I got decent clearance. It's been hard to work out where this gearbox is going to sit because there's no reference points really. So this is why I've got the anti-roll bar fitted back in, because that gives me the minimum height. I need some clearance around that, so I think that should be enough. And I've also got an exhaust silencer. Luckily this bracket is the same, it's reversed, but it's the same as the 5-speed one, so the exhaust fits in the same place. I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case, but it was obvious thinking about it because all engines and gearboxes use the same exhaust on the 987. So I've got my back box just held in place roughly on the right level, and I haven't got a huge amount of height above it, so that is as high as I want to be going really. So I've got my maximum point up there, my minimum point down here. So if I keep the front engine mount as it was, which I'm planning on doing, then there's only one place this gearbox can go. There is a belly pan here, and now I had that on the 5-speed, and it's not going to go anywhere near this 6-speed. It's so much bulkier, and it's sitting lower where the diff is really. So the plan is I'm losing this subframe here, the cross member that ran from there to there. I've got to remake it, so I'm gonna remake it out of this rectangle section steel. So when I make it, I'm gonna have it running underneath where the engine and gearbox meet, and there is like an aftermarket brace people would fit that goes from this point to this point, which is to lock your tow arms in. And I noticed that on the later Boxsters, this bit actually ties in to these these two from the factory. So there's obviously improvements to be made regarding stiffness. So my plan is I'm going to make a complete frame out of this steel that ties the whole lot in, and I'll lose that belly pan then altogether. So that's the theory. I think it's all going to work. I'm looking alright for that turbo with the clearance. So I need to lower this all back down now and just weld up where I'd given it a little slice into the metal just to fold it up. So got a plan, which is always good, so now it's time to push forward. So I'm ready to make up my gearbox mounts now. You can see how much lower the gearbox sits compared to original. Now I've got aftermarket gearbox mounts. These are RSS tarmac, I think. I did have Design Tech ones which looked pretty much identical, but they were opening up, so where this rubber is, there was a gap between the rubber and the upper aluminium piece, and so what was happening is my gearbox was sort of dropping lower and lower as time went on. So I sent those back for a refund and got these ones. I'm hoping the same thing doesn't happen. I don't have a huge amount of space for it to drop between my anti-roll bar and the gearbox, so I can't really afford for that to happen. I've jacked the gearbox. I've got the gearbox sitting about 5mm higher than ideally I want it, and that is based on the fact that once those mounts take the weight, I'm expecting they will sag a little bit, so I'm trying to preempt that, but it's a bit of a guessing game, so I'm planning on just welding them up once and not messing around with it, so fingers crossed I get it right. You can see I got reasonable space above them to run the exhaust through, both sides, so it's all looking quite good. I've got decent clearance with the turbo there. I had to just knock that in a bit, but yeah, it's not too bad. The heat shield's a little bit close, but I couldn't bend that out of the way. So that's my cardboard aided design. It's drawn onto some 6mm steel plate, so I'll cut that out and then weld them in, and hopefully that's the gearbox sorted. This is my old suspension subframe. You can see it's a modified one to clear the engine. Well, it's not going to fit with a new gearbox, so I welded some bolts onto my table that are exactly where this one was. If I get this perfect, my alignment's not going to change. So I'm just mocking up, ready to weld it. Hopefully. I need to make up new downpipes to go off the bigger turbos. They got different flanges, which are these. Bought them, they're like 40 quid for the pair, and didn't fit, and I had to drill them out to make them fit correctly, so not brilliant. That is a 3.5 inch to 2.5 inch reducer. I've only got one of them though. Can only get them from eBay, from China, and it's like 3 weeks or something for delivery, but I've got another one in there. This is the exhaust that I had on my single turbo Boxster, so I'm going to cut this up because I'm never going to use it now. So I'm going to take that out of it. I'm also going to take this vac, exhaust vac port out, and I'm going to use that for my breathers on the new exhaust, so it'll breathe straight into the exhaust and not back into the engine. So I've welded my reducer onto the downpipe flange. So you can see it comes up by there, and that's where the back box is. So I've not got far to go there to join it up. And same on the other side. There. And that's the back box. So the exhaust system should be pretty straightforward. I'll have to add the lander sensors in, and also the vacuum port for my crankcase breather. So this is the downpipes finished. The dirty section in the middle is bits I rescued out of another exhaust. Didn't have any 2.5 inch in the garage, so I had to, like new stuff, so I had to just make do with old stuff. It all works. So I'll wrap it up now, tied the Stevie Wonder welding. These flanges, they look like they've warped slightly, but I think it's just sort of killed the edges in where the bolt holes go through. So I'm using genuine gaskets, they're multi-layer metal ones. So I'm going to try my luck, just bolt them up nice and evenly rather than like torque down one corner first and then open up a gap on the other side, and see if I get away with it. If not, I'll have to take them off and get a machine flat. I don't want to have to do that really. That's my crankcase breather with the one-way valve. It's all looking a bit grubby because it was in a fire, but the one-way valve is fine. It's a special one, it cost me a fortune, designed to handle high temperatures, and it seemed to work, so I'll get these wrapped and get them on the car. That's the downpipes wrapped and ready to go back on. This is the new subframe I've made that's going to bolt up underneath the gearbox and tie the suspension arms together. It'll make more sense if I show it to you when I bolt it on the car. But it should. Right, finally completed the lion's share of the fabrication. All of this was needed because I've gone to the 6-speed gearbox. So let's change a load of stuff. Got the tips where I want them. I had to refabricate the exhaust obviously because of the turbos. So you got your downpipes there. They just went straight across. Before they came down under the existing gearbox mounts and then straight back up. So a big bend, which was a poor design. But I'd used the stock downpipes and then made the mounts around it, and then when I bought these silencers and fitted them with the position up high, it kind of dictated that's how it was going to go. So every time I take the car apart I come up with improvements, so that's one of them. So this is my subframe here. Bolts up either side where the original one did. Now originally this was just a pressed metal and spot welded frame. It was quite thin gauge, not very strong, so it just ran under and back up, and then there was a thin aluminium plate that went underneath the gearbox and bolted to there and there to sort of triangulate it all. So this should be an upgrade in terms of strength. Because these brackets aren't straight, they sort of kink up and in. You can't just lower it straight down because you hit the bolts. So I've made plates that go there, there, there and there, and they're bolted up underneath in the standard locations, and then my frame bolts to these plates. to lock it all in together, and the frame is hard up against these aluminium arms or strengthening beams, and so it's all rigid, locked together. Had to put a kink in it there just to clear the diff. But I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. It was a bit of thinking to work out how best to sort of go about it. I've added this piece in at the back because a lot of people add in like little sort of strut braces, because apparently in the corner these subframes flex, and so that should do the same job. I will get grommets just to cover the holes. I'll wax oil inside it and cover the holes to stop it rusting. I've added catch can that bolts to the back of the frame. So you got, coming from the exhaust, got this AM fit in there, and that runs over the gearbox. Got a one-way valve, and then that goes into the top of that, and then this is the one, the pipe from the engine, so it's going to come in through there and out through the exhaust, so I won't get any of my oil vapour going back through the engine. It'll come straight out of the exhaust. I've got a map sensor in one of the lines, so I can monitor the vacuum, because it's all a bit of a guessing game really with how much vacuum you get from one of those fittings in the exhaust. So I'll monitor it and see where it is. If it ever gets positive pressure, I'll probably have a fail-safe where it'll cut the boost of the engine, because obviously if you get positive crankcase pressure you'll start blowing out seals or pushing the dipstick up or something like that. That's the majority of the hard work done now. I need to put an oil filter on it, put some oil in it, connect the power steering, and it should be able to start it up. Before I can take it out on the road, I've still got to make the inlet pipes, which I'm planning on snaking sort of up the side of the engine bay and out through the side vents on each side. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.